Are you still reeling from seeing all of the Oscar-nominated films? We all love going to the movies, but it can cost an arm and a leg. Up next on Prime, chic and affordable home entertainment choices that won't break the bank. Prime starts now. Hi, I'm Amy Jones, and welcome to Prime. A lot of people are bringing the movies into their home with home entertainment centers. Joining us today is Dan Lee from Resord+Retirement Design and Rick Byars from the Patricia Group. You're here to tell us about home entertainment design options. Thanks for coming in today.
Thanks. Hi, Amy. Thanks for having us.
Of course. Now, first, Dan, what's the difference between a media room and a TV room?
Well, I think we all grew up with the family room and the TV room where a lot of activities occurred in the room. And a media room, of course, is really focused on movie watching and great sound systems.
Rick, tell us about some of the latest developments in home entertainment products. How do they enhance the viewer experience?
Yes, they have 3D technology now that you can actually see the picture coming from the screen. We have passive glasses now that are actually like sunglasses instead of having battery operated glasses that flicker a lot. You have the D-box motion seating to where the actual chair can move to the scenes of the movie, and the picture is really high definition now, and you get a really high quality image.
When you say that it can move to the scenes of the movie, are you talking about, like, we've all been to Disneyland or Universal, and we know that feeling of being on kind of a ride, but you're not really riding the ride?
Yes. Well, actually, the actual chairs have actuators in the chairs that actually move frame to frame. So if you were riding a roller coaster, you would literally go up and turn as the roller coaster went through the dives and stuff.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
Yeah. Or an action movie, if you're shooting a .50 caliber machine gun, the whole chair would actually vibrate with the machine gun fire.
Wow, you'd be pretty popular if you have that in your house, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely for the exquisite. Yeah.
Let's take a look at some of the examples we're talking about. The Western room. This is really a neat looking room. Tell us a little bit, Dan, about this room. What are we looking at here?
Well, I think this is a very exciting space, and of course, being here in Texas, we love to embrace Texas Hill Country looks, and you see we've got leather, we've got great textures here, warm colors. I tend, when I'm designing these types of spaces, to use darker colors but very warm colors because they're great entertaining rooms and you want your guests to feel welcome.
Now, we have a picture of another room that looks a lot different than this one, the Deco room. What's the feel here? Oh,
I think the Deco is very exciting, especially if you do a lot of entertaining in your home. It's wonderful for a condo or a resort home. I had a client that asked me to design a resort home for them, and they wanted a stage, and this is the kind of space where you could create a stage. That particular family brought their grandchildren in and even performed little plays and so forth during the holidays, and so this Deco space has a lot of glitz and glamour to it.
How big does the room have to be, and can it be in any room in your house?
Well, that's a great question. I think that ideally, it's the center room of the house, or it's on the western wall in Texas where we don't want all that evening sun or afternoon sun. And so it's a room that can be dark and it can be controlled really easily. Certainly a room that's closer to the kitchen, closer to the activity space, near either a wet bar or the kitchen, and near a powder room. But it doesn't have to be that large. Ideally, I think we would both, Rick and I, agree that 400 square feet would be really optimal, but sometimes we put them in smaller spaces.
Let's look at the black and white room for a second and see, in this room, you can see that there are some seats in the front. Can you have, multiple rows of seats, or, I mean, is that trendy now, or just have a few seats, or?
Well, of course, my firm, Resort+Retirement, does a lot of work for senior living, and we do work for condominium spaces, and so this is just a natural for that community activity room. And one of the things that we try to do is put it near another space so that French doors can be left open, for example, and there can be an overflow of activities from the traditional family room or kitchen into this media room.
Okay. They all look so beautiful to me. I like them. Maybe get one in my house. Rick, what about your cell phone or using the internet and the web? How is that kind of helping this technology?
Yes, you have multiple streams of content like YouTube, Netflix, Blockbuster. If you notice the Blockbuster stores going out of business, it's because they're streaming it online now. You don't have to leave your home to go get content. You can just go to an app on your device and instantly you're connected to thousands of movie titles, song titles. Apple TV is also another new, it's been around a while, but it's a convergence of your iTunes account to your television. You can buy music or movies right there with your remote control. And your cell phones and tablet devices now are remote controls. We can turn your smartphone into a remote control for your theater. We can adjust your lighting, your HVAC or the temperature in the room. We can start and stop the movie right there from your cell phone or tablet device.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Are most people surprised at how much you can actually do just from the cell phone?
Yes, that's the new technology boom, is the mobile apps, and we can turn a mobile app into the entire house can be controlled by your cell phone or a tablet or a PC.
Now, I know a lot of people are looking and saying, this looks nice, I'd like to have one of these. What is the cost? How much are we looking to spend to put in a room?
Well, we know that we can put in a media room for as cheaply as $10,000. Excuse me. And it can be, upwards to $100,000, depending on how elaborate and how much square footage you need. I've had clients who want very heavy, expensive draperies, and they want very expensive carpet and a very elaborate lighting system. Lighting is a really important component to these rooms, and you do not want to underestimate the expense that you ought to use or expend when you're designing the lighting, because the lighting really sets the mood and it gives you the controls that you want so that you have the optimal viewing conditions.
What about the mission room? A room like that, to give people an idea of the cost when they're actually looking. Something like this, is that the higher end or lower end?
That's an entry-level room. The size of the screen is small there. We can go as large as 150, 200 inch. That's probably around a 50 or 60 inch. Our biggest thing now with the projectors, the technology has come so far that used to what you would spend, $20,000 or $30,000 for a projector. Now you can buy one from $2,000 to $5,000 that will give you a really good quality image. We also have technology like LED. LED is a very, very low power green technology. It doesn't have to, you don't have to replace the bulb every 2,000 hours. The expectancy on a life of a LED projector is anywhere from 50,000 to 100,000 hours. So 10 or 15 or 20 years, no lamp to replace. So, you can get a lot of bang for your buck now, to where before it was, you had to spend a small fortune.
And Amy, I'd like to add that there are oftentimes we have existing homes and we don't have access to the walls and we don't have access to the ceiling space to do the ideal design that we might do in a new home. But just remember that when you have an opportunity to just have a drop-down screen from your family room and you don't have the space for a media room, you can still consider and use some of the technology we're talking about to have that great entertaining space.
So it's easier if you're building a home or starting from scratch to put one in. What are the challenges if you already have a home and you're thinking, I want to add this now, or what are the benefits of doing it from scratch?
Well, certainly the benefits is that you can plan the ideal room in the proper location within the floor plan. And so engaging an architect or an interior designer is a really smart decision, because that becomes a very important room, no different from the kitchen where you have a lot of complicated appliances and you have plumbing. I like to, when possible, put a wet bar or a small kitchen into these spaces, so you need to plan for the plumbing and everything. But back to your question, I think when you have an existing space, of course you need to control the light, and ceiling height is not so important as actually the furniture that you put in the space. So planning the arrangement and the space planning of the furniture is critical.
And I want to add to that, with the lighting, we can add a wireless light dimmer, so you don't have to tear up the sheetrock and run all this stuff. And it can run on a network, and the network can be controlled by your remote control device. So we can retro a lot of these technologies in without having to go in and tear out a lot of sheetrock and make a big mess. We also have wireless subwoofers and wireless speaker applications now that allow us to run speakers to the back of the room without having to, run a wire across the floor or demo the sheetrock and stuff like that. So we've had big advancements in the wireless technology and lighting control here in the past few years that really make it a lot easier to remodel now than having to do it from the new construction.
And back to your question again, I think a lot of homes built in the 60s and 70s had a small living room and then a bigger family room, and folks are finding they're not using that small living room, and oftentimes they're being converted to a study or an office, but sometimes to a media room. And if you have a closet, you can use the technology that Rick has just mentioned to not have to tear the walls apart.
And we can actually hide the equipment in a closet, and you don't have to see any of the equipment at all. And all you would see is the theme or the style of the room, and no equipment visible or big cabinets that we have to build in there. We can hide that in a remote location.
And as an architect and interior designer, I love not seeing all those switch plates and
definitely.
Controls and everything.
Well, homeowners too. I mean, you don't want to
Yeah.
look at all the...
Yeah.
Right.
When someone is looking to sell their home, does this add value? Because I know it sounds like it can be expensive to put one in, and if eventually you're looking at one day I'm going to sell and move, am I going to get the bang for my buck?
Oh, we live and breathe for technology, and so I think the average new buyer is really looking for good technology in their homes. And certainly I think as things advance, we may spend less time in front of the computer screen and more time in front of the TV screen where we actually work and entertain.
And if you can't afford, Rick, to do the whole setup, how would you start? What are some things maybe that are less expensive that could enhance the experience?
Yes, you could start off with a video projector and some audio equipment, and that would at least get the content into your room. And then you could work with the seating and then the walls and the lighting as you progress, but you have to get the content started first. And then once you have the content, then you can start working on aesthetics and stuff if you were on a budget.
How's the media room of today different than the media room that people were putting in years ago? Is the design different? Are things hot now that weren't hot before?
Well, I think we have a lot more choices for furnishings and lighting. For instance, the sconces that we might add to the walls, or we have just an untold amount of choices there that makes it very nice. And we're not so gimmicky with it anymore.
Yeah, and getting your family together to entertain and spend time with them instead of sending them off to the movies, and with the state of the security and being home is much better than having to go out all the time.
All right. Thank you for all this information. It's been wonderful. If you want to know more about this topic, you can check out Dan Lee's website. It's Resord+Retirement at www.resortandretirement.com. Thanks again for coming in. Very good information today.
Thank you.
And keep up with Prime online at onprimetv.com or follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We'll be right back.